Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share this video with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today is an actress who attended the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art in England and has appeared on such shows as Star Trek Enterprise, Grey's Anatomy, Mad Men, NCIS, Judging Amy, and is best known for her regular supporting role as Grace Polk on the series Joan of Arcadia. She recently dipped her toe into playwriting with the premiere of her play A Froggy Becomes at Open Fist Theater, which opens tonight, March 9th in Los Angeles. Please welcome Becky Wahlstrom. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, because with all the digging I was doing, I didn't see any other playwriting under your belt. And that's not to say that you haven't written more.
No, right. So primarily I've been on the interwebs as an actress, but
sure.
I have written 2 other plays. So I am still dipping my toes, I feel like. But
sure.
I did a lot of writing as a stand-up storyteller back in the days at IO West in Los Angeles and Fanatic Salon, and I've written a one-woman show and those kinds of things. Right. But this is my 3rd actual full-length play. So from what I was gathering, from what I read, this has kind of been hiding a little bit. You auditioned with a piece from this, and then it kind of came out of the drawer. I don't necessarily say if that's the case. The play started out as a monologue. I had written one kind of 9-minute stand-up storytelling as this character of Bumpy Diggs, and was performing it as a stand-up story through this character. And then around 2018, I want to say, in Nashville, I was invited to participate in the 615 writing workshop through Nashville Rep. And that's where they asked me what I wanted to work on. And I pulled this kind of monologue out, dusted it off, and wanted to really unpack her and put her in a full-length story. So
talk about that process. I mean, where did it go? You have this monologue, and then what was the next step going from there?
Well, the monologue actually came from, I was going through a box of cassette tapes, and I had found a cassette tape that was unmarked, and I popped it in to see what it was. And it was 5th grade me secretly talking into my diary, which was this cassette tape. And the stakes for this girl were so high. I mean, just listening to how intense every step of what was going on in her life was. I thought, oh my God, I want to play that character so bad. I want to play that character. So that's what made me write the stand-up storytelling piece about her pining over this man through the window, and while he was in love with someone else, and it was like a love story to him. And then when they asked me to write a full-length play, I wanted to, like I said, expand her. But there's no denying her as me, and this is probably the most autobiographical play that I've written. And I went ahead and just stole a lot of fabulous people and put them into my play that I grew up with, And it's very much a slice of life. It's very much it's told through the eyes of a 7th grader. It's very much magical realism. She's got to do the science fair project. She chooses frogs. It's a whole metaphor on puberty and morphing into a woman. She's becoming a woman and doing the science fair project and trying to survive this dysfunctional family and trying to get the hell out of something that otherwise is going to suck her in and suck out her soul. But it's for adults, so don't be confused. This is not a theater for young audience play.
Interesting.
And all the characters are played by adults.
Right. I gathered that. Because I'm looking at pictures. I'm like, I'm applying this to like middle schoolers, and so it's not good to know.
Yeah, I had like a couple friends of mine bring their 7th grade daughter or 8th grade son.
Oopsie. And
they liked it. They really liked it because it's flashy and it moves and it's fun and it's a romp, but I think a lot of it didn't sit with them the way it would sit with somebody who gets to look back at those years.
Right. So you break it out, you've got this monologue, and then how did you? What were the next steps? Did you know the rest of the characters that you were going to bring into this world, or did you just kind of let? What's your character's name again? I forget.
Bumpy Diggs.
Bumpy, or did you let Bumpy kind of lead you into who was going to be involved in the story? What was the
I
steps
knew the
behind
world
that?
she lived in, so I knew who was in that world as well. And of course, I didn't. I created characters. These are fictional characters,
Sure.
But I borrowed,
Right.
all my favorite details from all my favorite people in that town, and put them into these characters. And so I suppose I did know her village. I did know who needed to be there. And then I needed to know what she needed to do and say and how she was going to survive this.
Okay.
Was what I discovered through the science fair project.
Expand on that. I want to hear the unpacking of how that came into being. And
it started off as just a humiliating moment for her, but I realized it was a perfect metaphor for what was going on in her life with the tadpole going from a tadpole to a frog. And I used it as a device, essentially.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So once you got the first draft done, were you workshopping this? Was this a collaborative process with?
It was we would go away. We'd write several scenes in each of our different plays. I was a solo writer on this, and then I would come back to the group and we would just read scenes together and go, hey, what's working, what's not. We would read each other's scenes from each other's plays, and I think it went on. We did this for about 9 months, and then we had a staged reading of all of our plays, and this was one of them, and that was early on, and then it was scheduled right away. One of the theaters in Nashville wanted to do it. And then, long story, but they lost the theater space, the space that they needed to do it. So it was in their season and they were ready to go. And then they lost the entire theater space. Wow. And this is a little bit, Nashville, most of their theater spaces are church spaces. They're also
Right.
churches. So when they caught wind, and mine is not a really racy play, but they caught wind of the play that was before mine, and it was Wolves, which is a very well-known, excellent play. And when they caught wind of the content of that play, they decided they weren't being thorough enough with reading the material going on in their theater spaces, and they were kiboshing my play and Wolves, and they kicked Wolves out and they had to go find another space, and mine just got kiboshed altogether. So in fact, they found another space, but mine has big ogres and flying like puppets and things that are big, so it needs a big space.
Sure. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise.
I don't know. I don't know that it was a blessing. I would have loved to have seen it go up, but what I mean is when they found another space, It was too small.
Got it. Understood.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of goofy when it comes to. I mean, it's their theater. I get it, I suppose. But we had when we produced Maiden's Prayer by Nikki Silver. We had there was a theater on Magnolia called the Actors Forum, and this lady.
I feel like I've been there.
Yeah, it has this like Egyptian proscenium and stuff like that. It's old school, but it was also ran by this older lady, and so we had. Gone in we'd kind of had a mix up with the Raven, and so we're over there and it's like, hey, we're looking for space, and it's all right. Well, here's it. Give me the deposit, and send me the contract and send me the play because I want to read the play as well.
Sure.
And I'm like, we didn't hear anything, and I'm like, I went back and I'm like, hey, what's going on? She's like, what's the play again? I'm like, it's The Maiden's Prayer by Nikki Silver. Oh, that's right. It's a play where nothing good happens to anybody. Exactly. I imagine her. You're
not going to write a play about things that are just everything's good's happening to people. Nobody wants to watch that.
Exactly. And so it's just fun. I don't know why I always imagine her like that heavy smoker lady, but yeah. So all of a sudden, our deposit gets sent back and she reneged. She's like, you never returned the contract. I'm like, you told me that we had plenty of time. Yeah. So it's just kind of goofy that things like that happen. Yeah. Not even in churches.
Yeah. No, but yeah.
But now you said you're writing this in a group setting. So where was this? What was it? Just a writers group that you were in?
They had selected 5 local Nashville writers to foster and to support through a playwriting process. They have a program.
Who's they? Real quick.
Nashville Rep.
Okay. So theater company. Okay.
Yeah, the kind of one of the mainstream theater companies in Nashville, the repertory theater there, and They had a guy there named Nate Epler, who was their resident artist for a long time there, and he's a writer, excellent playwright. And so he was championing them having these programs. Sure. And they were usually extending, casting that wide net where they would get someone, they took people from all across the like 5 writers from across the United States. But what they realized is they're like, we really want to have a group that's also local.
Sure.
So we're fostering our local writers. And they asked 5 writers. Well, they asked people to submit, and then I was invited to be one of those writers.
Before I change subject, I want to finish off with the process. So you did a table read or stage reading.
That was a staged reading.
And then
it evolved to the point of a first draft, and then a revised draft, and then a staged reading at the end of that of my play plus the other 4 writers' plays.
Okay.
On different nights. It was like a whole week of playwriting, staged readings, and then it was supposed to go, and then it didn't, and then I submitted it around and up in Chicago. I cannot remember. I think it's Red Cat, or like there was a theater up there that grabbed it and said, we do staged readings and we love your play. So I did a staged reading of it up in Chicago too. And every time it gets a staged reading, I, the writer, am taking all those notes and getting feedback and tweaking it and molding it and all that kind of stuff. So it had 2 staged readings. Then it got part of the Dramatists Guild Starlight series or something like that down in Georgia. So it's had 3 staged readings, and everyone's like, yay, we love this play. And then it's like, cool, do you want to do it? And they're like, no, it has 12 characters. We don't have the money, and it also has a big ogre puppet and has a lot of flying things, and we don't know if we can handle it. So we can't. Sorry, And so it really it took a theater like being like, we're going to take it on. We don't care. And that was Open Fist, which I was super thankful for because I've worked with Open Fist before in Joe's Garage as an actress.
Right. Okay.
And so I knew their work. I love their stuff. I love their choices, and it just kind of went from there.
Obviously, I'm going to assume that, I guess, Open Fist, this production has an equity, right?
No, it is not. And I don't know all the ins and outs of what has changed here recently.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you with that.
Because they're a company, they can do... We did cast within the company as much as we could. Yeah. And they, I believe, fit under the 99-seat theater contract.
But what about so the one in Chicago said, no, we can't. It's 12 character or it's 12 actors. We can't afford it.
Mm-hmm. They were a small, tiny little theater and company or theater that that wasn't going to be what they were going to do.
And it wasn't going to be equity either, right?
No. And then
so I don't understand where the budgeting issue comes in if you're not paying those 12 people.
Well, they still have to build that puppet. They still have to. All that stuff. I guess as far as I didn't know, but what I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this, but like the trend was going towards smaller and smaller casts. A lot of times because they had smaller and smaller spaces. Like I feel like people are performing in, old barber shops turned into a black box theater space. That wouldn't work for this piece. I sent, so, that was just the journey. And then of course it was, COVID.
Sure, of course.
So everything, because it was 2018, 2019, and then 2020 was COVID. So then it was just, I really thought it was like a miscarriage of a play. You always feel like if you can't see these things happen, your baby dies, right? And you just feel this sense of like, man, it's just going to sit in a drawer. Are you kidding me? So I felt a sense of sorrow for it during COVID for sure. And just thought, all right. And then, as soon as we kind of all started crawling back out of our houses, this play, I had sent this play to Pat Town. Well, I had sent it to his wife, Brett Pazel, who's an amazing writer. And I wanted her just to give me her feedback. But in the back of my mind, I knew she's also married to Pat, who directs, and I've worked with Pat, and I love Pat. Maybe she'll slide it on over to him. And she did that very thing. And Pat doesn't love reading scripts. He has a hard, he doesn't like reading them. He likes hearing them. So he's someone who would go to a reading more than he would sit and read a play. But Brett was like, I think you should read it. I think this is right up your alley. And he did read it. And he was like, decide right away. He said he wanted to direct it, which was great. So I had a partner in crime trying to get that thing up.
Sure.
And he did. I have to, hats off to him. He rocked it out here in Los Angeles for me, because I've been in Nashville. It's harder for me to be connecting with people. I mean, I lived out here for 17 years, but I don't anymore. So him getting it to open fist and making sure if that follow through was happening and all that was Pat. And I was just so appreciative.
So when with the whole feedback and the revision, what was the feedback process like for you? And then how much changed in those revisions?
The feedback, there's something funny about Nashville. Nashville is nice. So you do this whole writer workshop and everyone just is so nice. And they just tell you everything that they love about the piece. And it's just, this works and that works and it's fantastic. And so it's really hard. I mean, even in, if you go see theater and you read a review, they're just the nicest reviews. They love every play. You know what I mean? And it's very sweet. It's very wholesome in a way. But it was hard to get, objective feedback. I had to kind of go to my cutthroat friends and go, really, what do you think? Tell me directly, what do you think? And so that was the kind of stuff that, helped me tweak it.
What'd you get in Chicago? Were they just brutal and cutthroat?
No. But I did get some good notes. All the writing stuff, all the hey, you presented this and then it doesn't come back until page 80. So why don't we bring it in through and give it that's part of the spine. So we need to see it in the middle, and this element here, it works here. And then even just learning, putting it on its feet is where you start going, oh, I have her she's transitioning way too fast. She needs time to change, or she needs that kind of stuff is only what you learn when it gets on its feet. But the writing and the tweaking and all that was just hearing it, listening to what's missing. I still feel like I don't feel like it's ever done.
Right. No, of course.
Even now I feel like, oh, I'm seeing some stuff that I wouldn't mind fixing. And sometimes I don't know how I'm going to do the fix or not, but it's never perfect. No, and I think that's the snag we wind up coming into in this regard, because it's never perfect, and we have to realize at some point we have to get it out. We have to let it go. Oh, yeah. Because it's never going to be finished. But if you don't put it out there, it's going to sit in that drawer. And I mean, I'm a fan of I'm a fan of ensemble work, and I'm a fan of the process. The way I know Pat Town is through Zoo District Theater Company, and we were known for doing newly written, weird, circusy, commedia dell'arte stuff. We try new things. We were always taking risks and making bold choices, and we would do that. And together we would work and through that process find something, and you'd hope some of it's gold, and you hope even the crap parts kind of they fall in there. And so I knew I was going to learn from this rehearsal process. However, unfortunately, my timing, because I'm trying to get my degree in social work at the moment, and I'm in my final semester of school, I was only able to come out during my spring break. So I've only been out here for the last 10 days, and I'm learning so much in these 10 days, but man, I wish I could have been here from day one. And I think if this goes again somewhere, I will sit through the entire rehearsal process to really make sure that the play can function perfectly and smoothly for the actors, as much as it does on a page. What
did you notice in these 10 days? What and were there any changes that were made?
Yeah, I think that with my director had his idea of a style, and he's going for a style, and it's it kind of feels like that. And without me being here, I was like, oh, I gave him the baby and he raised the baby. And then I got here and I was like, well, wait a minute. The baby, why is that baby slouching? Or why is that baby not a vegetarian? It feels like just stuff like that where you're like, no, wait, hold on. And I couldn't have asked for a more fun, creative process this week, because Pat's open-minded. We've worked together for a long time, you know, and yet I like that he also has his vision. He's, you know, so it was a real sweet collaboration this week, I gotta say. And we split the difference in some spots and made it even, I think, richer with the different notes that are now being played.
Right. Now, are you taking that approach from a playwriting perspective, or are you kind of putting a director's hat on in that regard?
I'm trying not to put a director's hat on.
Right, and that's why I'm asking. I'm hearing these things. And
this is only my third play, so I'm still learning. What does it look? I mean, I was an actress for many, many years. I know what it looks like to be the director through the actor's eyes.
Sure.
I know less what it looks like to be a playwright, right? And what that process is, because usually they're quietly sitting next to the director and going through that director. So I've been just learning what the etiquette is. I've been learning how to best work together to make sure that it doesn't confuse and overwhelm the actors.
Talk about the etiquette. What like in what aspects? What have you?
The simplest thing of like, you know, like, because sometimes the actors are coming up to me and going, "Hey, can you talk to me about this character? And like, what do you think about this and that?" And I just want to have this conversation right away. And I realize, oh, I cannot have this conversation until I sort of siphon it through the director, because that's the channels. And it was that's a learning process. I mean, why would you even know that? You would think freely, of course, I'm going to tell you all about the character. And then you realize, oh, this might skew what the director's looking for out of this actor particularly.
But do you know all those things? I'm just curious, because there's certain times where we just get in that flow state of writing where certain things just come out and you're not quite sure why. Everything.
Story.
Yeah.
And I like when an actor brings something that you did not intend, but it certainly works. I mean, it's like, that's the joy of, like I said, going back to collaboration. You have one perspective, but there's 9 ways to skin this, you know, or 10, whatever. And you don't know until you see someone else do it and you go, oh, I like that better, you know, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so much fun.
What, any other etiquette things besides that you picked up on, or?
Learning that you do, if you can, want to, especially for a first play, want to be in that rehearsal process. So you as the writer can also learn, oh, this doesn't fly. What I thought was on the page it's not here. It's not gonna, there might be more that you need to add writing wise, you know, but if you're not there, you don't know.
Did that happen?
I said, I do think there were a few times that they had to add some stuff or ask me, and I created a line or two. Yeah, because they needed to get that from point A to point B clearer,
right,
than they were. And it was over the phone. You know, we'd be on the phone at least once a week, you know, talking about something or other. And so yeah, it happened.
And what were the things? What were the things that changed in this 10 days? How much tweaking did you wind up doing, if any?
I feel like I wanted to make sure that there was intimacy, vulnerability, and heart. I wanted some girl story in this girl story. That's so sexist to say.
No,
like
it's
that,
no, it's no, it's not.
Like,
I don't think so at all.
Like, you know, Pat wants this thing to move. He wants it big and bold. He wants that like visually to be stunning and the energy to be there. And yet I said I wanted to make sure that didn't get in the way of those softer, more vulnerable, those quieter moments.
Sure.
And if that was what we were making sure I was making sure it had. And then of course I love when, you know, because the script calls for it to go into high gear, and that's where Pat knows how to do that. And so, you know what I mean? So like it had that, and I just want, you know, so those were some of the things that we were working out. And he knew it too. It was just, where do we want to, how do we want to, when do we want to?
Sure. But you said the script calls for it to go. How does the script call for that? I mean, do you blatantly say, at this moment everything goes into high gear, or I'm just curious how you do that? Yeah.
You know, the house starts to shake and you know, and rumble, and in comes an ogre. I mean, that quite literally happens. So you know
Sure.
that that's not going to just be a casual moment in time.
Right.
Things of that nature happen. So, you know, and then it's like, how do you tie that with a very realistic human scene of two people, you know, laying in the backyard under the stars talking? How do you make that transition?
How do you make that transition?
Well, we did the best we can. You'll have to come see it and see if you like how it happened. You might be like, that was terrible. You didn't make that transition. But, you know, that's the challenge. It's just been a ride to try and figure that out. How do we make these fun new choices in unexpected moments and make them still gracefully move into one another in one play?
Did you find that the structure of film and television, that you had to fight that going from your experience in that medium into playwriting, where it's not all these quick cuts?
No, to be honest, I came from theater. I went to the high school for the arts in Chicago all 4 years, and it was all theater all the time. I grew up with some really amazing theater folks like Shira Piven, Matt DeCaro, Lynn Baber, like these teachers of mine showing, you know, and then the Chicago theater scene too. You get to see what a rich array of pieces were going on at that time. And so for me, the theater comes first for me.
Sure. Okay.
I've always been a little bit more of a stranger to TV and film, but moving out here, of course, that's how that's your bread and butter. And so for me, it was always, I was always a little bit more of a fish out of water on a film set than I ever was in a theater.
Did you dabble in playwriting then?
I did. I've always written. I wrote a screenplay because I was out here at age 21, and I took like a writer's boot camp workshop thing, and or whatever it was, and wrote a screenplay, and then I wrote an adaptation of a book for film. But for this, and to your question, even though I'm comfortable in the theater, yes, I did run into moments where, like I was saying, where I'm like expecting Bumpy to be like here and then here in 2 seconds. And sorry, that just isn't going to happen.
Sure,
She's got to make the cross. She's got to change. A whole season changes. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
That's just the like bolts and nuts that you end up like, what do we do here now? Did
you realize that in the writing process, or did it kind of just sneak in? It's like once you were in the rehearsal, I'm like, oh wait, whoopsie.
More here on its feet did I realize it, because when you're doing a staged reading, nobody's really dealing with exiting stage right and having to return back through the audience, blah 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 going around. That wasn't happening. It was quite literally this time around that I'm getting to do all that stuff, which is why I think every playwright wants to get their script on its feet somehow, somewhere, so you can make these discoveries.
Well, I think, I don't know. I think that's more accessible than I think people realize. They think that they have to have. I've been going back and forth through this thing where especially with younger playwrights, where it's like, stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for somebody else to give you permission to do what you want to do. And they're all in theater right now. Like you have directors, you have tech people. Go find a space.
That's true.
Go crowdfund.
That's true. Absolutely. And especially, that's kind of how theaters get built anyway.
Right, yeah. I forgot who it was. I said Richard Viteri or Luke Yankee. Somebody was on recently was talking about they were doing backyard theater.
Totally.
They were doing just stuff in their backyard and selling tickets and like for a nickel or something like that back in the day.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, and how many times have we done there's this unused room in the back of this shitty bar that we're
right.
You know what I mean? Oh, okay, cool. We got something to put up there, and I want to try this out or that out, and definitely.
At least to hear it. It doesn't take much, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we kind of touched on it, at least as far as the community goes, but tell me about the market difference between LA and Nashville.
Nashville likes their musicals.
Okay.
It's Music City,
Fair
right?
enough.
So they like their musicals out there. But I think there's definitely a lot of very cool artists out there looking for something different to do. And in a way, it's the same as, well, I feel like they take less risks in their theater community. But maybe that's just everywhere. Like, everyone needs to make their money. They need to get their, Christmas Carol out there and their these money makers so that they can then,
Is it supported though? I mean,
as far as support, like as far as people come out in Nashville. First of all, it's easier to get around town.
Sure.
Although they'll complain about traffic all day long, which it makes me giggle when you're like, oh yeah, you haven't seen anything until you're driving on like 9-lane highways, stop and go. It takes you 2 hours to go 10 miles or whatever, 5 miles. But no, I've noticed that they definitely have that support people coming out to see things. They'll come out and see staged readings. Like, I felt like in LA, you couldn't get anyone to come see a staged reading. And I was out there, and all of a sudden, half the theater community's out there seeing a stage. I'm like, oh my God, people are coming out for a staged reading. That's very sweet. It's very cool. So I think the audience is there. I think people are willing to come out and support. I just think the theaters with the equity theaters, I feel like they're doing what they do, like, catering to subscribers the way they do.
What about the more independent theaters? Is it reasonable? Is it pricey? I mean, if you wanted to grab a space for a weekend, just curious if you even know.
I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like the spaces, when I was like looking, it's hard to, everything is very changing constantly in Nashville too. So maybe there's more now. But before the pandemic, when I was trying to figure out what to do here with this piece, I could think of some, but it was like, there's not as many experimental theater spaces in Nashville. And I think maybe there's starting to be.
Right.
But when I was back in 2018, I feel like there was Barbershop. I knew, Nettie and Graham ran that, and they were more than happy to do it. But I mean, the space was maybe 2 times the size of this bedroom. Like, it's so little. Sure. And they do experimental stuff, and they love to like encourage, people to come out and try new things. But it's a small baby little space. And so,
well, I'm a minimalist as it is, I like to just kind of simplify as much as I possibly can. Not to say that the big things that you
pieces,
can't.
That's what you want. You want that intimate
100%.
Red Orchid,
obviously, it doesn't,
Chicago space that you're like, that's what we want.
Sure. Yeah. And what about pricing? Like ticket pricing? Is it like reasonable?
It's reasonable, and also there's definitely the impetus to like make it affordable to students, make it affordable to 2-for-1 nights or actors nights. They definitely strive to do that.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find it? Do you like it more, or
it's different? It's a different space. I feel like when you live in Los Angeles, I've said this a bunch of times, but people are like, "You moved to Nashville, so weird." And now you're there, and I'm like, "Yeah," and I left. I kept my apartment here for like 3-4 years before I even let it go, because I kept thinking, well, I'm not staying there forever. I'm going out there I was going to create a theater program for a charter school a friend of mine's started. And then I was going to come home back to Los Angeles, and I just kept staying. And there were like these opportunities. Hey, we'd like to invite you to do this workshop. Hey, we want to commission you to write a play about autism, and we're actually going to pay you. Like, when does that ever happen in LA?
Right,
and then hey, we got another grant that we'd like you to write this play about these 12 quilting ladies that exist, and then we want to archive them and through the means of a play. And I was like, okay, so that got paid to do that. Like, I kept staying to do, and then I got cast in King Lear, and then I was like doing very creative stuff. I was auditioning for TV film out of Atlanta, so it kind of was possible to be there and not give up much, and there's a feeling of like when I was in LA, I always felt like I had forced mental illness, like forced bipolar. You're either like, yes, it's amazing, or no, it's horrible. And then you're going up and down with your emotions. Like, it's just very, like, it's like, it's like Vegas for actors, Los Angeles is, right? So, like, it's like you're playing that slot machine, like, yeah. And that's addicting and amazing. But when I was out in Nashville, all of a sudden I just felt this steady, calm, rolling hills sense of myself that was very peaceful.
Sure.
Like, woo, how nice. And, still feeling creative, closer to my family up in Chicago. I would pop up there 4 times a year easily. And, like I said, auditioned for TV and film stuff and book stuff out of Atlanta for before I started doing school.
Sure.
So it was all kind of been working. And then I met a lovely partner, and, so that too, all of that.
Yeah, there's something about, I don't know if it's a fear, and maybe it's the nature of how things are being pushed now, post COVID and whatnot. But I mean, Nashville's they're going through a huge burst of people packing up and moving. But Nashville, definitely. Georgia, still, even aspects of Florida, whether that's Orlando or Miami, those are huge moving markets right now. Mm-hmm. Where people are getting away from LA, and it always seems like everybody seems so much happier once they pack up and get the heck out of Dodge.
The thing that I also noticed was I thought you get this sense of, what is it? It's sort of like a location ego. Like, LA, New York, everyone knows what we're doing. And then you go out, you leave outside of LA and you're like, no one's paying attention to us in LA. Half of these people don't even know what the hell we're doing. But you feel so central to life when you live in LA. And then when you leave, you go, oh my God, all these people have other other jobs. There's all these other industries out here and other things they're doing.
It's not just a bunch of waiters and waitresses and
it's
bartenders.
Not just like what's happening in Hollywood today. What's the big movie? Like what's the thing? Yeah, it's amazing.
There's a guy, Lee Walkner. He runs Moving Arts, and when I was thinking about changing Punk Monkey Productions into a nonprofit and going that route, when you talked about it, it's like, well, number one, why do you want to give up control of your company? That's number one, because once you get the board, then they might start making the decisions, and then you're not running anymore. Yeah. And then the other aspect is he talked about smaller markets, and how. I think they might have been in Little Rock, but he was with a friend. He was discouraged, and he's like, well, go to a second or third tier market,
I feel like because so many people are working from home now, they don't have to be in these large cities. And I feel like the large cities are getting expensive. Well, so are the smaller cities. Sure. But nonetheless, I do think these flyover cities are becoming places where people are like, hey, we can create something here. And before you know it, you've got some fun stuff to do. And, you're in, I don't know, somebody was telling me about Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like, I don't know, okay. But like, why not? Yeah. Why not have a theater company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and like a start up something there, and start creating a scene for yourself there, or wherever. Kansas City, Missouri. Drove through Cincinnati the other day, and we're like, look at these old kind of like factory cities. Mm-hmm. They're kind of great, And that's the point that Lee was making. He told his friend, he's like, call up City Hall. Call up City Hall and ask them how many vacant buildings they have. And most likely what they'll do is they'll sell it to you for $1. And then because if you open up a theater, guess what? That, but I'm gonna test this theory. I swear to God.
Yeah. So he called 3. They said, we'll give you a call back in 10 minutes. They called back. They had 3 locations that they were willing, because if the theater comes in, guess what's going to come in? Now all of a sudden these other businesses are going to pop in, and they're going to open up, and now you've created this business area that cafes and restaurants are going to start popping up, because people, they want a place to hang out afterwards before. Yeah. Did it happen? I don't know. But it's an interesting concept.
What's the result of this? Because I want to know.
Well, I want to say that the Odyssey on Sepulveda is an example of this, because I think that guy got it for like $1. And because they're making money off the taxes.
Pat was telling me there was a space that he's like, I said, whatever happened to Zoo District? I don't even remember how we crumbled or folded or what happened. And he's like, don't you remember we were going to grab that like some Spanish kitchen or some kind of building that was ready to, I don't know, the guy was ready to leave, and we didn't kind of have the courage to do it, like to buy it for like a song and a prayer. I guess at that time would have been nothing, and just create that theater space. But like, you're right. I mean,
and keep in mind, these are government owned buildings. The city owns these, and they're just sitting there, and nothing's being done with them, and that's why
they're just sitting there.
Exactly. So they can part ways with it. They can make the money off the taxes. And all the other business that's going to come along with it.
Yeah.
Again, have I tried this? No, because again, I'm stuck in LA,
all you
just
young
like everybody
people
else
out there. Listen to this advice and give it a go.
I'd like to. I mean, but again, I got a few more years here before I can pack up and really give it a shot somewhere else.
Yeah. LA is definitely. I tried to leave a couple of times. I went up to Alaska and did I was on a radio show, morning radio show for a while, and I thought, oh, this is it. I'm leaving for good. I'm staying in Alaska, and it just sort of sucks you back in. Like you're like, oh, but wait, they're doing this. Oh, they just offered me a little role in this. Oh, I got to go back down and.
Sure. Well, I mean, maybe Vancouver, you would have had some, better opportunities, something closer.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Anchorage, Alaska is pretty damn cool.
I went for the Anchorage International Film Festival, and I had a great time. It's a great little town.
Yeah, it is.
How long were you there?
I spent a few months there in the summer,
of course,
first, and then I went back and I spent a few months in the winter to see if I could live there. And actually, when you're working on radio, the winter is better because you have to get up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., get to the thing. We were getting the bits written and then doing it, and we're on the air. So it was so hard to go to sleep at night in the summer at 8 p.m. because it was as bright as it is out right now, and at noon here in Los Angeles. It was so bright that at least in the winter time, you could get home. It was dark all the time, pretty much, and you could go to bed at 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. and get up at make that schedule happen.
Sure. Did you do any theater in Anchorage?
No, I was doing radio there.
Okay. There was no time for theater?
I was up there, and then I somehow I was doing broadcasting at Santa Monica College. And I'm like, I'm going to do an internship up in Anchorage because my friend was just living up there, one of my best friends. Sure. And she goes, I know this DJ on this one radio station. And I ended up working and getting on the morning show, in Anchorage, the Bob and Mark show. And I was on there as their sidekick. Mark, I feel like, was having a baby, or him and his wife were. And so Bob needed someone to talk to. He's like, get on. And then it was just started from there.
How was the bit writing for that?
Most of it was Bob.
Okay.
And he would write most of the bits, and he was just smart as a whip and banging those things out. But it was a very it felt like very boys, male show.
It's boys club.
Yeah, I was just the girl, or I was quite literally referred to by callers as, "Hey, what the girl? Just talk to the girl." It was that. But it was a lot. It was still a lot of fun, and the bit writing was mostly him. And then they knew I was an actress, so I was like, I'll do whatever you throw at me,
So you had no position, I guess.
Say in my bits.
I don't know about say, but
he knew he was driving that machine. That was his show, and I was quite literally the sidekick. And
you were
today
just
you're
there
doing
for the
Martha.
ride.
Yeah, you're gonna do Martha Stewart. She's in jail, and she gets a call from Puff Daddy or whatever, or Snoop Dogg, and I'm like, okay, I'm playing Martha today, and or whatever. Or it'd be like, here's a commercial. Oh, we want you to prank my mom, and you're the Girl Scout selling Girl Scout cookies, and then start harassing her or whatever. I'm like, okay. Because I'd come from improv as well, so I'm like, okay, we'll do that. Yay! It was fun. How much
did improv help you in your playwriting?
I feel like improv is a fantastic tool for if I had my own team of improvisers.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be a luxury? Improv, I feel like, I guess, I don't know. I've never really thought about how it correlates to playwriting.
Sure. I'm just curious if you ever used it. I mean, I know that for me, when I went because I went through Iowa West as well, and when I went through Iowa West, I'm like, okay, it's kind of like that. Get rid of all that superficial stuff that has nothing to do with starting to see in the middle and stuff like that.
Yes, definitely those rules apply a lot of times, and why are we why are we, now that you've built the ramp, cut the ramp off and start here.
Yeah.
Things like that definitely have obviously played into, because you have that knowledge in your head, you're using it already.
Right, yeah.
And beat changes, and when does this beat change? When is there a shift? When do we swipe? When do we get this, end this, totally.
So you got, which I thought, as we talked about when you first got here, that I thought it opened last week. But I guess you had previews last week for A Froggy Becomes.
It's opening tonight.
Congratulations. What did anything change for previews? What was it like? Talk to me about previews, because I never understood them. Like I've kind of been a little more open to previews nowadays.
You mean to going to them as an audience
No,
member?
as
Performing?
Like when we did Maiden's Prayer, we were going to do the first week as previews, and we were just like, no, we're not. This is opening. We're not doing previews.
Okay.
So, from a playwriting perspective, how do previews help you, or how do they benefit you?
I think previews really is still it is still rehearsal. It's rehearsal for the actors, but they're graced with some audience members to see what that conversation looks like now from stage to audience. And usually, like, for example, Open Fists offers pay what you can, because you're helping us as actors, or the actors and the playwright. You're helping us by being here, and we get to feel the energy from the audience. You get to give us feedback, either after the show, before the show, or during it, just by your attention or what it seems like you're responding to and what you're not. So to me, it's a week of rehearsal with the added element of an audience who's paying a little bit less because things might go wrong,
and they're fully aware of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. And I think each night of the previews, I believe Pat would say, thank you for coming to our preview. We value your presence for sure. This helps us to build a better show.
Now, you say rehearsal, but I mean, there's no stopping and restarting a scene if something
in a preview.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I've never seen that.
Okay, I was just curious, because I mean, and this is more for the listeners or the viewers, just so they think, if I'm going to do a play, and if I do my previews, it's a rehearsal with an audience. So I
would not say that you would expect anybody to go, the director's not going to pop out and go, can I see that scene again, please? Back to one. No, I don't think so. But you know what? You will get to see a lot of fun faubles and things that weren't intended. For example, I think an image of Ronald Reagan popped up on the back screen during our first preview, and I had no idea what that was about, but it was strangely appropriate for the scene. And afterwards, Pat was like, what'd you think of my choice about Ronald Reagan? I was like, I noticed that. And he's like, I'm just joking. That was a total mistake. I don't know we don't even know where that image came from. We just they were laughing about it back. So they're like, well, these things happen in a preview, and they happen in a run too, but you're hoping that you get those wrinkles ironed out.
Sure. But I mean, at the same time, and this applies to weddings too. I don't know. I don't know why I'm throwing that in there, but the audience doesn't know when something goes wrong. And that's what I was coming from theater. And I talk to people that are don't worry about something. Don't be a bridezilla. The audience doesn't know what was supposed to happen. They don't know what's, so except where maybe the set pieces fall.
Right. When it's a total disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless
but those are fun to see sometimes.
Oh, 100%.
I encourage you all to go to previews, because it's kind of beautiful to watch these things happen. That's live theater.
Did anything change after the previews? Did you do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or?
We did Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we did Friday again last night.
Okay.
Last preview.
Did anything change from Sunday to Friday? Did you make any tweaks, any changes?
Yes. I said before, there's I feel like we're adding more chords to the music, to the sound. When I say music, I mean, if the whole play was a song, I feel like we're adding layers to it. More layers to this song now. It was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think it's changed a lot since last week. And the actors are finding new things, and Pat and I are merging sort of our visions and, creating that marriage there, and hopefully that has changed it for the better and not for the worse.
You mentioned you mentioned layers. How do you write layers? Not necessarily in this moment,
through time, but through knowing that, oh, you've built this, and then you go, oh, you know what though? Like, we could also weave this color in, or this sound in, or this thought and this. I mean, even as an actor, you're layering things. You're like,
sure,
she's not just this, she's this, and there's those things are going on like they are in real life. She's, you can be terrified and excited and mourn and also mourning a loss all in 1 minute of your life,
right.
So why not have that appear on stage too?
How do you do that in the writing process, if you can even describe that? Because again, you're not in that moment right now, so I don't know if that's a fair question for you to answer, unless because you're not in that moment. So I mean, but maybe you do. Maybe you do know.
I think through imagination, through sometimes sitting and just imagining what you're seeing and what you're hearing and what's happening. And then sometimes don't the characters tell you, like they kind of they start fighting for something and you're like, oh, I have to give them this thing, or they have to arrive here, or they have, I don't know how to explain. I guess in the writing process, how do you find layers? Just through rewrites, and I think so.
Okay.
And then of course, like when you have somebody else reading it and you hear something else, you can take what you liked and dump what didn't work. And then you're imagining all the elements of theater: sound, lights, visual, movement. All of those things can be used. And maybe the first time you're just writing it because you're imagining it through the character's dialogue, but now you writing it going, well, they're outside, and where are they? And then you start building on the where, and then the sounds, and then the visuals, and then what else can go in there? I don't know.
What I'm kind of taking a step backwards, but because I know I'm really interested. So you've got your monologue now, and you've started creating this world. So we're in the realm of this character. Does this take place in the middle, and now you're creating the bookends? Where when you were doing this monologue, where is this in the play?
Yeah.
So what did you create around it? Did you create the beginning and you're like, okay, well, I know I have to get here, so I have to go back here, and now that I'm here, I have to, like, what was that like? Where were you in that regard? Because I want to kind of get your process as far as like, was it a linear situation? Was it an outlining? It
was the very beginning of the play.
Okay.
And there was also, so the monologue was both the very beginning of the play. It's now opens the play, but the last half of it is about 3/4 of, or is about 50% through the play.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So
her fantasy becomes action. In the monologue, it was a fantasy of what she wanted to do, and then it became an actual thing that she does in the play, because I have the time to let her do it.
So was that a linear situation for you from a writing standpoint, or were you like, okay,
we start here? Okay. No, I think it was. I think we start here. It was the starting point, because we start here, and she's got to make it through 7th grade as a very quirky, very ridiculed, tomboyish, dirtbaggy, kid from a dirty household, and and live through that, and live through her own like body changing. And it also lives in that space where you realize your parents are not driving your little life car, because they are not, they're not equipped. And I think that happens with kids in a dysfunctional family earlier than it does with kids that have functional families. But nonetheless, it still happens even in a functional family. You realize my parents don't know everything at all, and I am alone in the world for that very reason. And it is ultimately my decision how I travel through it. And that's a scary spot when you realize that. And you go, oh. And then you start driving, and you don't know how to drive, but you're just driving until you start to get the hang of it. And it's in that weird space too.
How does the transition, her transition, because she's becoming a woman. So how does that transition look on the page? Is it just through dialogue? Is it stage directions? Is it wardrobe, or is it all the above?
I say becoming a woman, I mean, it's still in the 7th grade. So
100%.
Seeing her turn into,
exactly.
Like
but there's got to be
evolved.
There's got to be some maturity.
There's an arrival
happened.
at hope and at survival that is like taking the reins, and it's a very optimistic story about that arrives at that she gets there, or she's going to strive to get there.
And you're doing that through dialogue then?
Yeah, pretty much through dialogue and through scenes and through her traveling through that year. It takes place over the course of a year.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Were you completely drawing everything back just from your childhood or your experience, or was there anything that you tapped into in the present that you used to tack onto that? Mm-hmm. Or, because obviously as a young 30-something woman,
you would have you'd be able to look back and go this way, go left. Yeah. I'm sure I did that. I'm sure there was a part of me like guiding that child out.
Sure. Did you look into like what are the kids doing now?
Maybe it is a love story to my child self that they always tell you in therapy to do. Go take care of your inner child. Go back there and treat that child the way they need to be treated. Like maybe there was a bit of that I was doing there. I don't know.
I think this whole season of Playwright Spotlight, I feel like every single episode has been catharsis. It's just everybody's just working through some serious shit. Whether that's tragedy or just stuff that they've dealt with that they just haven't come to terms with. And maybe that's I don't know, maybe that's all playwriting is.
And you hope it's not self-indulgent. You hope it's something that you've said that other people can resonate with and go, yes. And yeah, because I think if I just was trying to have my own catharsis and it didn't get past that and be a story that people can link into and hear about. I think at the end of the day, you still want to hear a story.
I don't even think it needs to be a conscious effort, a conscious decision to write something. I think that what we get out is onto the page is a form of catharsis.
Oh yeah.
And we're not even realizing that we're dealing with some stuff that we haven't probably come to terms with. I don't know. I'm spitballing here.
I agree with you. And honestly, like, I've never felt like there are a few things that feel as good when you finish a rough draft and you slide away from your desk and you're like, done with that. Like, that is such a sweet, sweet feeling that you almost don't need anything else to happen for a little while.
No, 100%. Well,
so is that because we're having that cathartic? We just had that. Yeah. We just had that cathartic time. We've just left the therapist office and we're like, finished, done it, did it.
Right.
I don't know.
I think that that's great. And on that note about finish, I think that's I think sometimes with beginning playwrights, they think that once that draft, I'm done, it's finished, I can start sending it out, and I don't think they realize there's the whole writing is rewriting.
Yeah.
Not to be, cliche.
Yeah. Because that feeling is so good. They're like, it must be amazing. I don't know. And then you have to go back and do a lot more work, and that's just the beginning.
How much time did you, when you finished the first draft, you're done, you stepped away, you sat back, how much time did you give it before you picked it back up?
Not much, because I was really excited about this play, And I already had someone interested in doing it, one of the theaters out there, right? So I definitely was all on it to beautify it and make it clean and sharp and moving. And yeah, this one I was really excited about to keep working on.
Did you get any negative feedback?
Oh, there's always things that are like, I'm confused about this, or I feel like this doesn't work here, or that. Yeah, of course.
And I don't.
I mean, negative, just like, well, what would negative, like, just negative feedback would just be feedback that wasn't really helpful in any way, more than anything, right? Maybe this wouldn't be everyone's bag.
Sure.
You know, but so far, I had a guy sitting in the theater last night, and I was like, oh no, he's not gonna, this is not his thing. He's like, I don't know why I thought that. I didn't know why I thought that, but it turned out he was like, that was such a refreshing piece of theater. Oh my gosh, I want to bring my 16-year-old son back, and I think he's gonna love it. And da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, you think you know your demographic, or you think you know your target audience or something, and you never do. Joan of Arcadia was like that. When I did Joan of Arcadia, I think that Les Moonves had that show on, and he had this, you know, I was playing like a 16-year-old, and we were all supposed to, and I think he wanted a younger audience for CBS, and he wasn't getting it because it ended up being these 40-something-year-olds with kids at home on a Friday night who were watching the show, and it was philosophical. I mean, Joan was talking to a god, and God was giving her missions, and it was very philosophical and all about life and science and religion and all these questions. And it wasn't young kids watching that show. A, they weren't even home. It was Friday night. B, you know, it was a lot of like parents, and I don't know, like this big black bouncer came up to me and was like, love the show. And I thought that was hilarious. I was like, oh, you do? You know, yeah, I love that show. Just like, you don't expect who's watching this thing, you know?
So how did you know when you were writing this is going to be for adults, or did it just kind of fall in?
Yes, I definitely knew that.
So why is it for a 7th grader who's going through this? Why did you make that your target audience?
Because I maybe the nostalgia was what I was playing on, and I knew that. I mean, that's where it's. I think it's the nostalgia that makes this definitely an adult play.
Okay, all right. And
also, people were saying like, "Oh my god, I think I have PTSD from this. I totally remember that, and I never want to go back to 7th grade again." Like that dude walked out of the theater saying that. You know what I mean? Like, this is exactly why I hated school.
Got it. It's not so much what you're as if you were talking to a child right now. It's not so much what you're going through right now. This is more for those of us who went through this.
I think so. But again, we had some young people there Saturday night who just loved it, and then or maybe they take something different away from it.
Sure,
you know what I mean? And that's okay. It's not particularly bawdy or racy or anything.
Oh, sure.
It's pretty clean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I just because I did write a theater for young audience play. Mm-hmm. Okay. I approached that very differently than this.
How has your writing evolved from the one woman show to the play that you just mentioned to A Froggy Becomes at this point? You know,
you're assuming it's evolved. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Or do you notice have you noticed that your writing's changed as you've begun writing more?
I started slipping more into theatrics. I think my first play was might have even be like kind of kitchen sink drama type. You know what I mean? Like where very real scenes with very real people and doing very real things. You know, I think I've taken the license to get more creative and make things a little more magical. Just because I like living there. I like making it exciting to see on a stage as well as.
We'll talk about that because you're I don't want to say you're taking chances, but you're going big. You're not playing it safe. What was it that instead of just saying, oh, the dad's an asshole. No, the dad's going to be an ogre, and he's going to, not in a, not in a
metaphoric sense, right?
In a literal sense. So talk about that.
That was definitely because I knew I was writing this play through the eyes. Bumpy Diggs quite literally breaks the fourth wall and talks to us as if she's talking to that cassette diary. Right. So all of this is happening through her eyes, and she sees her father as this very large, controlling entity banging through the house, that they have to navigate. So why not make him physically and visually that? She sees this, the way she sees people is how we get to see them. The stakes, what she feels, we get to feel that with her. And that's what I wanted to do with this play, was I want to live in that exciting, vibrant, electric colored world that you have as a seventh grader, seeing all these things going on around you.
It's I don't know, there's some fabulous advice as far as writing goes in that little moment that you just talked about, because I don't think that when we write, I don't think we always take that conscious step back to say, let me look at this through this character's eyes right now. We just kind of like let it flow out and just spew all the words out, but we don't necessarily always take that back and like, oh wait, hang on, let me take this character. I mean, how is this coming across? I
think, I know what you're saying. Like sometimes we're too up on the ceiling writing for our characters and not in their shoes. Yeah. And you've really got to make sure you're sinking in to their shoes. And I think, that acting has helped me do that.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Did you do that with any of the other characters?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's nothing, and sometimes with stylized pieces and whatnot, it's easy to make them stock characters.
Right.
It's really important to me. I keep saying to these actors, like, I really want you to find all their layers. They are not one thing. They are not one thing. But so I like a complex character, and I don't, because of how big and bold it is, I'm hoping that comes across.
Did you write background for your characters, or because there's some, I gotta know everything about my character.
Yeah, sometimes as a writing exercise, you flush out what is their hopes and dreams, what is their biggest fears, who do they love, where would they go if they could go somewhere else. You think of all that, like that helps to build a character that you don't know much about. And for some of the characters, I needed to do that, but in this particular piece, I knew a lot of these characters really pretty well. So I was like, oh, I know exactly what their hopes and dreams are, or at least I think I do, right? It's my version. But
has anybody that you've drawn from read this or seen it?
Yes. Yes. Some were, I will just go say this, some were not pleased, but most were okay with it.
Do you have any fears of likeness rights that you're going to have to be paying for?
No. I've gotten the clearance, and this is just not their favorite piece. You know what I mean? Like, that is not my favorite.
But they know it's them? Or, well, obviously, did you?
Oh, they know it's them. And yeah, like, particularly my parents. Now, the other thing, that the interesting timing of all this, because this is pretty autobiographical, and I will say, like, I had a pretty much a big ogre of a dad, and a lot of this is based on that character. And I was also fearful of this play getting back to him being presented as such. Mm-hmm. I would still feel terrible to have him feel terrible to learn that information. But he passed away last year. So the timing was insanely kind of like, when they called me, it was like a few months. I thought to myself, oh my God, I really don't have to worry about that at all now.
Sure.
So,
but and had he read it then?
No.
Okay.
No, definitely not. No. And I don't know that it ever would have gotten back to him either. We were not that close.
But you wouldn't say, I got this play, it's up, come and see it.
No, he wouldn't. He would have heard it through family, and and that's where I would be nervous that he would hear. And he has, and I am conscious about that. I mean, he has living siblings, and
Sure.
people, how do people feel about that? It may not be their favorite thing, and I don't expect it to be, and I don't expect them to need to champion me for this, piece, but
Right.
It's my cathartic moment, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Did you get any feedback like that's not how it happened, or I'm not really like that? That's not
my
me. Come on, I don't
siblings
do
yes,
that. That's not. I don't do that at all.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's that. Yeah, there's that. But then there's also, oh, that's exactly it. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I do steal a lot from just real life. I love being a people watcher. I love spending my public transportation and watching, and just nothing is more entertaining to me than real life and how it unfolds. And so I do steal a lot of that stuff.
Like what? Can you give me an example? If you're like people watching, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna.
I need to put that in there.
David Matthew Barnes, he's like, I'm a professional eavesdropper. I'll listen to a conversation. I'm like, here we go. This is a scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, what now? I don't know. I'm sure we all do it. Like listening to NPR the other day, there's like this group of people or these ladies that collect dolls, and they're obsessed with dolls. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I need to know more about what makes a grown woman want to have a room full of dolls.
I want to say that there was a lady I lived across the street from. There was a couple.
Why?
Ray and Barbara.
I need to know why.
I was fascinated with that room because there were dolls, but she had doll houses like that were like, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I want to play that. I don't know. I don't know. But again,
I went a step further with, I knew somebody's uncle who not only had a collection of teddy bears, but moved them around in various different, they would be having dinner one day, and the next day they were putting ornaments on a Christmas tree, and he was basically playing with dolls at age 70. He was playing with dolls. And so that's okay. But I want to know why. Right. I want to know that person. I want to know that person. What's going on in there.
And how do you unpack that?
Yeah.
No, and I mean, when you're writing and you
what is this serving for him? Is this where he's understood here in the dollhouse? Is this where he shares his deepest, darkest secrets? Is this where he works out his own kinky ideas and passions that he can't share with others? Is this, I don't know, is this who knows, is this him plotting a murder? Is this, what is he doing hanging out with teddy bears for hours?
He's a furry. I don't know.
Who knows? Okay, all that to say that's the kind of stuff that I love when life is weirder than fiction.
Sure.
And you go, note in my notebook.
So on that note, with A Froggy Becomes, you open tonight. What's the next step? What are you going to start? Are you going to start working on something new now at this point? What are you working on now?
I'm working on getting a degree in social work. I don't know why. Well, other than everything closed down in 2020, and I thought, I'm going to go to school. Never did that before. I went to conservatory,
sure,
but that's different. So right now I just write papers over and over and over again. And but yes, as soon as I finish that little goal of mine, there's things I want to write and things, and I do keep writing to work that muscle, but a lot of it's just papers, like I said. But Froggy, I want it here, but I also, I really want it to go up in Chicago somewhere.
Sure.
Since that was where it was born, quite literally the suburbs of Chicago is the setting of this. It could be any suburb anywhere, but I know for a fact it was the suburbs of Chicago. And so therefore, and that was my birthing place for my passion for theater and everything else. I want to see it done in Chicago, and we want to make that happen. Nashville.
Do you have a strategy for that, for Chicago? Do you know what approach you're going to take or how you're going to go about it?
The thing I just keep doing is asking people if they want to read it. Sometimes I think about someone who'd be really great at that role and might want to read, you know what I mean? Like, hey, this is something for you, or a director, or why would this be interesting to you?
Sure.
Give it to them and pass it along, and in Nashville too, I'd like to see it up So yeah, but I'm just right now basking in the joy of it going up here in Los Angeles with a very good friend of mine, Pat, and an excellent director and, actor also. And right now just enjoying the moment.
Where can people find your work?
Well, this play is at Open Fist Theater in Atwater Village, and you can go to openfist.com to get tickets or to learn more about it.
Is it anywhere like that anybody who might be listening is like, I got to read this, I got to maybe put it up somewhere?
I think I'm on the Playwright Exchange.
The New Play Exchange?
Yeah, I'm on New Play Exchange with this play.
Okay. All right, good to know.
Yeah.
All right. And then also, are you on the socials?
You know what? I could be better at that.
I could be too.
I suck. I just learned that I can get a message on Instagram. I was like, oh my God, sorry, Jackie, didn't realize that you can type on this thing. This message back in October that you sent me, I didn't mean to ignore you. Didn't know this. But no, I guess I stopped at Facebook. And then I was like, this is too overwhelming. Like, it takes up too much time. I'm on Facebook, and I am only on Instagram because my niece put me on there. I may never respond to you on Instagram because I don't know how to operate it.
Do you want to share that handle, or are we just going to forego?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. This is what I was supposed to promote myself and not my stupidity.
No. Some people might be interested in connecting with you or following you and stuff like that.
You can come hang out with me in Nashville. I live in a cabin north of the city with some chickens and a dog, and I would be happy to have you sit out on the deck and we can have a glass of wine. That's about as much as that's just the connection.
So real social.
Yeah, real
legit,
social.
not this, virtual.
No, I am on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Becky Wahlstrom. I'm on IMDb.
There you go.
I'm on, I think there's BeckyWahlstrom.com.
Oh,
who does that anymore though?
Well, you'd be surprised.
Really? Okay, well, I do have BeckyWahlstrom.com. It's just like all my old theater or TV film stuff. Headshot Reel, I think, is on there.
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Becky Wahlstrom, thanks for coming on to the Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share this video with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, until we see each other again, keep writing.